Swiss voters back higher retirement age for women's. What's this? Equality? No, I'm surprised that since men have a shorter lifespan, women should have a higher retirement age than men, right? Like, why is it that in some places in the world, women can retire earlier than men, even though they live longer? That doesn't sound fair. And it looks like Switzerland agrees. So voters have approved a proposed reform for the basic old age pension scheme in a ballot billed as key for Swiss domestic policies. Around 50.6% of voters coming out in favor of raising women's retirement age to 65 from 64, while 55.1% endorsed an increase in the value-added tax. Oh, God, that was a dumb idea. According to official final results on Sunday. They voted to increase their own taxes. Man, they better be getting something good out of that. Support for the reform was clearly higher than in the main German-speaking part of the country than the French and Italian-speaking regions. Interior Minister Alain Berset said this is the first time in 25 years that voters agreed to a proposal to shore up Switzerland's central pillar of its social security system. Referring to the close outcome of the vote, he warned Sunday's winners to ignore the concerns of opponents. It's clear that it's a clear signal to parliaments to seek solutions to improve the position of women in a reform of the occupational pension system. Left-wing opponents denounced the result as an insult for women's. They said women's had to pay a high price and were still the victims of wage discrimination. They're just never going to let that go, will they? Well, so maybe the alleged wage gap, maybe that'll be tightened a little bit when women have to work the same amount of time as men. If they spend more of their lives working, they're going to skew the statistics a little bit. So in the first reaction, Vanya Oliva of the Unia trade union vowed to fight any further attempts to raise the retirement age. Speaking on SRF Public Radio, political scientist Urs Bieri, co-director of the GFS.Bern Research Institute, said the majority of women have probably rejected the reform. Now, what do they say what the retirement age is for men, though? Okay, so it was 65 for men and 64 for women. So all they did was make it equal. Why are all these women that claim to favor equality bitching about achieving equality? Now, to be fair, I would have preferred they just lowered the age for men to match women, but if that's not an option, you got to pay your fair share, ladies. At stake was an overhaul of the mandatory old age pension scheme for men and women to ensure its long-term funding and adapted to aging population and shrinking workforce. Just import more. You'll be fine. The scheme, introduced in 1948, is financed through salary deductions in pay-as-you-go scheme. It is part of Switzerland's social security scheme that consists of two additional pillars, the occupational pension funds and individual savings. A majority in parliament, the government and business community came out in favor of the reform. They argue that the state pension system is at risk and needs additional funding to the tune of 18.8 billion USD over the next 10 years to prevent it from collapsing. Launching the government campaign, Berset described the reform. The reform, while it includes compensation payments and incentives for flexible retirement, is a political compromise. He said it is in the interest of everyone, also of women's. Yeah, and it seems counterintuitive, but it is in their interests because if you don't do this, it's going to run out and you get nothing. You get nothing. Supporters also stressed the reform is an act of solidarity by consumers, which would have to pay a higher VAT rate on products and services to ensure a future of Switzerland's key social security scheme. Oh, the Ponzi scheme is only going to last for so long, man. Now, the Social Democratic Party, together with their traditional allies, the trade unions, as well as the Greens, had challenged the parliamentary decision to a nationwide vote by collecting the necessary number of signatures. Campaigners argued there's no need to reform, which comes at the expense of women's, and dismissed financial forecasts for the pension fund as too pessimistic. Even the voters saw through your bullshit. An increase in consumer tax at a time of price hikes, notably for electricity and health insurance premiums, would further strain the purchasing power, according to the political left. I mean, it is true. It's kind of weird seeing the left arguing against tax hikes for once, but they're not wrong. The turnout was higher than expected following intense last-minute campaigning ahead of polling day. Initially, it seemed the grassroots of both sides has made up their minds at an early stage of the campaign, and the issue at stake had been on the political agenda for years. Nonetheless, emotions have been running high for the last few weeks, with supporters and opponents trading accusations of circulating misleading information and engaging in scaremongering. That's the world we live in now. Just get used to it. Over the past 25 years, the Caesar proposal to reform the pension system has been rejected by Parliament and or voters, most recently current year minus 5. Well, they succeeded now. At least 3 other proposals are in the political pipeline to revamp the Swiss old age pension scheme. They include the use of the national bank surpluses and national monthly pension payments to help less well-off elderly beneficiaries. Another initiative aims to raise the retirement age of both men and women to 67 and adapt it to the average life expectancy. Now, this is actually an important point. So, at the time retirement, like this whole, Social Security retirement age thing was in place, they weren't expecting most people to even make it that far. Like, the idea was that only a small percentage of the population would even live that long, and everyone else would have worked themselves to death before then. And now that life expectancy is skyrocketing, you got people that are like some people live to be 100. So they're taking money on retirement for like what, 33 years before they finally die. That's longer than a lot of you guys have been alive. That people just take retirement pay. And I don't have a problem with that. It's like, fuck, if they put into the system, they deserve to take out as much as they can get. And I say this knowing full well that by the time I reach retirement age, if I even live that long, there probably won't even be any Social Security anymore. But point being, that system, when it was first invented, like it was really just a virtue signal. You're telling the population, like, hey, look, when you get to this age, you don't have to work anymore and we'll take care of you. But they were supposed to die before they get to that age. Like, that was in the calculation. Like, maybe 5% of people will even live this long and we'll have to keep supporting them. All the rest will die before that happens. And now it's just completely flipped. Like, most people live to retirement age. Most people start drawing that damn Social Security.